and welcome to this edition of Talk Vietnam. Now, you might have thought of this when you were a younger child or, perhaps while watching a science fiction movie. But have you ever thought about the fact that you could possibly use your mind to control or move things without actually moving or actually using any verbal communications? Or have you ever thought about the fact that perhaps you can use your mind or know it so well that you can harness the powers of the brain and also read the mind of others? Now, this is the idea behind this device right here. It's called Emotive Insight. And with this device, we are going to go into this edition of Talk Vietnam, where we talk to the Vietnamese woman behind this wonderful device and learn more about her story in brain technology. Hello, Tân. Thank you so much for joining us here on Talk Vietnam. I'll hand this over to you.
Yeah.
Can you please explain a little bit about what this device has to offer?
Sure. So this here is an electroencephalogram, so EEG for short. And what it does is it picks up electrical fluctuations that emit naturally as we're alive and we're sitting here. So every single person in the world has a brain, and as the neurons inside our brain interacts with each other, it emits an electrical impulse. And this device tunes into those electrical signals, and then what we do in the software is we process them and we interpret them to figure out what it is that you're thinking, what it is that you're experiencing, and we get a glimpse into how your brain actually works.
Yes, it's almost like, those machines that, those older-fashioned machines where, there are the electrodes that connect to your brain when you go to the doctor, is it?
Exactly
It's the same
right.
science.
It's the same science. So the science for measuring brain activity, electrical signals from the brain, has existed since the 1930s. But traditionally, it looks like a hairnet with an array of sensors. And you need a dedicated technician to put the hairnet on, and it's usually used in hospitals, clinics and labs. But what we've done is we've advanced the technology so that it can be used in a portable context in the real world, so that you can actually see your brain in action while you're at work, while you're in the field, while you're doing whatever it is that you might be doing, so that you're not constrained to a hospital or clinical environment.
Exactly. So, this has gotten me and I'm sure with the audience really curious about how this device works. And can you please show us a little demonstration?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works is very simple. You just put the device on, and each of the sensors have to connect to my scalp, because we're actually picking up very, very tiny signals from the brain that has to travel from that cortical structure through the scalp and through a layer of hair. So it's important to make sure that the connections are good. But now that the connections are really strong, we can now see my brain in action in real time. So what we're looking at now is a map of all the activity that's happening in my brain and the localized areas where it's most active right now, and the rate of the information exchange. So the different colors represent how fast the communication is traveling in that specific region of the brain. And it's also localizing, so you can see that right now the front of my brain is lighting up in the left temporal region, and then we're starting to see, the right brain pick up as well. So
that's incredible.
It's giving us a real-time feedback as to what's going on. And what we do is we take all of these electrical fluctuations and we interpret them. Because, it's really great to be able to see what's happening, but what does it mean? And what can you do with it? So what we can do with this is we can interpret these electrical fluctuations to basically interpret thought. And I can show you how we do that in order to maybe move an object. So we'll switch over to this app now, and it's running on my iPad. So to begin with, I'll train a neutral signal, and neutral is just listening in and tuning into what my brain looks like when I'm just being myself, so that it has an idea of what my brain, who I am and what it looks like. The next thing I do is I imagine the flower opening up in my mind. So I'll do that now. Okay. So now that I've trained it, I can actually start to play with it. So you can start to see that when I think it, the flower starts to open up.
So now it's a bud, and you're going to try to get it to open up.
That's right.
With your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yes. You see it opening up. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's more like it. That's more like it.
That's amazing.
Isn't it great that I can use my mind to actually just affect something without touching it, without doing anything except the power of thought and translating that into something that, you know, the machine can understand.
Exactly, and it's a way to train your mind as well, train your brain to be able to, as you said, to be more productive in your thought.
Absolutely.
Since its inception, Emotive's technology has been adopted in transforming lives. When Cora was 17, she had an accident while driving home. The car went off the road and hit the tree. She could never walk again.
I want you to think about like pushing the box upward.
Emotive has given her another avenue for recreation, for communication.
You're gonna make me cry. It's made me very happy to see if there is an avenue that we can get more of her back.
So as we saw in the previous clip, we just mentioned about, this device being life-changing to a number of people. And the story of Cora comes up. I mean, she was paralyzed and she was able to use this device to smile for the first time using only her thoughts.
Yeah.
Can you please
Cora
share
is
us?
probably one of the most humbling and most inspiring stories within the Emotive family. You know, it's not an easy process to work on technology when there's so much uncertainty, and so we often need to have those sorts of milestones along the way that help us to reinforce our belief in what we're doing as well. And so we're very, very privileged to have stories like that that come up and that gets shared, that allows us all to feel a sense of, affirmation, that what we're doing is worthwhile, that it has meaning, that it has value beyond just technology. Because technology is very interesting intrinsically,
Yes.
but it's got to have meaning. It has to touch people in some way, in a meaningful way. And that's really the opportunity that stories like Cora offers to us.
The Emotive Epoch, Tenlet's first-generation device, has been adopted and used in more than 100 countries worldwide across a spectrum of application areas. Everything from allowing a child to create a 3D monster just with a fantasy of his mind, or allowing a patient to control an electric wheelchair, or to experience the ability to type or communicate again.